Hi everyone, this is the Focus Spender, and today I'm going to be sharing with you 7 budget travel tips that helped me save thousands of dollars on my recent European vacation. But first, if you're new to my channel, I would love for you to subscribe. My channel is all about getting out of debt, staying out of debt, organizing your finances, and increasing your net worth. And if you would like to follow me on social media, you can find me at Focus Spender on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Now let's get started. So about a week and a half ago, I returned from Europe with my fiance. We went to London, Paris, Barcelona, and Madrid, and we were there for about 12 days. This was my very first time going to Europe. I had the opportunity to go to Europe when I was 13 years old on a school trip, but when I saw the price of it, instead of going home and talking to my family about the price of the trip, I got accepted to go, but I said, oh, I'm not interested because I really was just worried about the price. And the second time I had the opportunity to go, I was actually in the middle of my total money makeover and I did not want to get off track. But then a million years passed and I still had not gone to Europe. So this trip with my fiance was actually long overdue, and I'm glad that we finally got a chance to do it. I did not want to blow the budget on this trip because I have other things that I want to be spending my money on, not just traveling. And there's so many resources and so many ways you can save money that I wanted to make sure that we save money on this trip. And I want to say that, honestly, going into this trip, some of the things that we did to save money, we pretty much planned out ahead of time. And then other things, it just kind of fell into place where we're like, okay, let's readjust and shift and figure this out. Also, if you want to actually get some real budget travel tips, you should definitely follow my friend at Travel Becomes Me on Instagram. She is honestly, she's the reason for the first tip that I'm about to share. Okay, so the first tip I would like to share is that you need to be extremely flexible with your travel dates. We initially planned on going on this trip in August, and we were just taking so long to buy the plane tickets. And at some point, I realized if we're going to be trying to travel the last week of August, it's going to be extremely expensive because in New York, school begins the first week of September. So the last week of August in New York is like peak travel time. Everybody's trying to get that last minute trip in, and the flights were getting to be a little bit out of control. So at some point I said, you know what, let's really think about these dates again. And we went back, we looked at the calendar, and instead of traveling in late August, we traveled in early September. And early September is the shoulder season, meaning the tourist season has just kind of ended, but the weather is still good. So it's still a really good time to travel. So our plane tickets for 2 people round trip from New York to Europe were a combined total of $576. $576 combined for 2 people. That's all I gotta say. Just be very flexible with your travel dates. So the next thing I want to talk about is, so travel tip number 2 is to try to stay in an Airbnb. Hotels were going to be very expensive. Every time I looked at hotel prices, I would think, okay, I want to stay in a nice hotel and I don't want to spend $300 a night. Where am I going to stay? I'm not going to stay in a hostel. Like, I'm sure people stay in hostels. This girl is not going to stay in a hostel. It wasn't going to happen at all. So we had to come up with a different solution. And so what we decided was to try Airbnb. And we were very nervous about trying Airbnb because you're staying in an apartment, you might be staying in someone's home, or maybe they're, renting it out like a hotel. You just really don't know. And so we were kind of nervous about the whole Airbnb thing. For every place that we stayed in, we researched it thoroughly. We made sure that we were using Superhost. And so a Superhost is someone that has like a long history of really good stays at their Airbnb. They might own multiple properties. They have really nice amenities. People always rate them highly. Just different things that you want to see. We made sure we read all the reviews. We made sure we looked at the neighborhoods to make sure they were safe, and different things like that. And honestly, for all 4 places that we stayed at, the places itself were beautiful. Like in every city that we stayed in, there was absolutely nothing wrong with the places that we stayed. One place ended up having really bad Wi-Fi, but you know what? It was clean. I actually cooked while I was there in the apartment. So that was another way that I was able to save a little bit of money. Okay, so speaking of cooking, that leads me into tip number 3. So if you're gonna be staying someplace for an extended period of time and you're gonna be at an Airbnb, you definitely need to grocery shop. So when we stayed in Paris, we were there for 4 days, 4 nights, 5 days. We were directly across the street from a little supermarket. So we made sure we went to the supermarket, bought eggs, bread, cheese, milk, cereal, just the basics, because it's cool to spend money on a nice lunch or a dinner, but I'm not trying to spend money on breakfast every single day because 1, it adds up, and 2, it cuts into your day. So we made sure that we bought just the basic groceries, water as well, so that we just did not have to spend so much money on food, and that really saved a lot. Okay, so tip number 4 is to use public transportation. And I know that might be a little bit easy for me to say because I live in New York City and public transportation is just the way of life for me. I have a car, but I barely ever use my car. It just sits in the garage because I can always hop on the train, hop on the bus. And so when we were in these various cities, that actually was like the easiest thing for us to do. It was very easy for us to pick up and figure out how to use every single city's subways and bus system. So we just went and bought their Metro cards or their the tickets in Paris or whatever each city called it. We went, bought it, studied the map, and that's how we got around. So, you know, when we were in Madrid, we probably spent $15 a piece on our cards, and we took a cab one night, and that one cab ride was like $17, $18, which is not expensive, but if you're doing that consistently from city to city, that adds up very, very quickly. So definitely learn and use the public transportation in the city that you are in. Okay, so tip number 5, I actually need to modify it a bit. So tip number 5 is to shop before you come. Now, I want to be very clear. Shop for the necessities before you come. So like, make sure you buy your toothbrush, your toothpaste, and your soaps and all those things because they might be expensive. They might be more expensive. They might not be in brands you're familiar with, so you just don't know. But the reason why I want to change this up a little bit is because I did not understand the whole VAT, value-added tax situation in Europe. I learned about it in grad school in economics class, but then went in and then went right back out. So you can save a lot of money by shopping in stores that are based in Europe. So we went to Zara, we went to Mango. Those stores are based in Spain. And when I go to shop at those stores in the US, you know, they're kind of expensive, whereas over there, they were dirt cheap. So when you're thinking about shopping, shop in local stores or shop in stores that are based in the country that you're in. Don't go to London thinking you're going to go to Banana Republic and J. Crew because you're going to spend too much money. Make sure you're shopping at like the Zaras and the Mangos. So that's my little caveat on shopping. And I'm definitely going to do a video directly on value-added tax because it is something that you all need to understand. Okay, so tip number 6 is to make sure that you are doing a lot of research before you come. Watch a lot of YouTube videos, read a lot of blogs. So we found all these YouTube videos on London and Paris. We didn't do too much with Barcelona and Madrid because we were just researched out. But for London and Paris, we watched a ton of YouTube videos and read a lot of blogs. And that way, we knew exactly what we wanted to do. We knew where the locals ate. We knew how to stay out of the tourist areas. When we would go to the tourist areas, we would just take pictures. We would walk around. When it was time to eat, then we were going to the really cool, really local places where the locals ate for a decent amount of money as opposed to spending out the wazoo where the tourists are. And tip number 7 is to make sure you are using a bank that has no fees. And this is actually, it could be a whole video in and of itself. So I use Capital One as my debit card, my everyday banking, and I also use Chase as my credit card. So before I left, the night before I left, I called Chase and I said, hey, I'm going to be away. Just letting you know, these are the cities I'm going to be in. Please, if I use it, don't cancel the transaction. And they said, okay, that's great. It's going to be 3% or 5% transaction fee for each purchase. And I was like, okay. I was fine with that because I also had taken out cash and I was going to exchange the money. But then I called Capital One, and Capital One told me that they were not going to charge any fees. No fees. I was like, what? So then from then on, when I got to Europe, I did not even use my credit card at all. Like, forget the points. Who cares about the points if I'm going to be paying a fee on every single transaction? I just use my debit card for everything. But the one thing I wanted to also point out is that when you are traveling overseas, and I literally just read an article about this yesterday in the New York Times, and I'm definitely going to be linking it below. But when you're traveling overseas, and they give you an option to, and you're going to use your credit or your debit card, they're going to give you an option. They're supposed to ask you whether you want to pay in local currency or do you want to pay in dollars. Always, always, always say local currency. So every time I shop, when I was in Barcelona and Madrid, they said, do you want to pay in euros or dollars? And I always said euros. And that was because at one point when we were, I think, in London, I bought something and they asked, do you want to pay pounds or dollars? And I realized I said dollars because I thought that makes most sense. That's the currency that my bank is in. Maybe I won't be getting charged a fee. Lies. They mark up the price when they charge you in dollars. So let's say the conversion rate is $1.10. Instead of just taking the price in their currency and multiplying it by $1.10, they're going to mark it up like 20%, or they're going to mark up that exchange rate to $1.30 or $1.40 and multiply the price of their item by that. So you're spending even more money. And at first, when I noticed that on that one transaction, I thought, if I had just paid in the local currency, not paid any fees with Capital One, I would have been paying a couple dollars less. And I wasn't sure, honestly, from that point on. I was like, maybe I'm imagining this. Maybe that was just at one store. But then I said, you know what? I'm only going to pay in euros when I'm out. I'm not going to pay in anything else. I'm not going to pay in dollars. I'm just going to pay in euros. And then lo and behold, boom, New York Times has a whole expose of banks trying to rip you off by charging you higher when you pay in dollars when you're overseas. So make sure if you're shopping and you're overseas, always, always, always use your card and pay in the local currency. To be clear, I just looked up how much the average 14-day European vacation costs for two people, and it said $6,600. And when I did my rough calculation of how much we spent over 12 days, which is close enough in my opinion, we spent about $4,300. So about 21 and change per person, which honestly was good because that $4,300 covered all of our travel, all of our plane tickets, all of our train tickets. It covered all of our food. It covered all of our excursions. It covered cabs, transportation in and around the cities. It covered everything. And so that's it. You can definitely go travel on a budget and still have a wonderful time. If you want to try Airbnb, I'm going to also leave a link to them in the description box. I think I have like a discount code or something, so I'm going to just leave a link to that below. So that is it. Those are my 7 budget travel tips that saved me thousands. And I hope you like this video. Be sure to click thumbs up, share it with your friends, and leave a comment. Let me know where you've been and how those experiences have been for you. Thanks. Bye-bye.